Hello and welcome to City on the Sofa here on LCFC TV, ahead of the Premier League clash between Everton and Leicester City at Goodison Park. We've got a star-studded lineup here on LCFC to this afternoon. We've got Matt Elliott, former Leicester City club captain. We've got Steve Walsh, former Leicester City club captain. And Tony Cottee is dialed in as well from his home in Essex, former Leicester City striker. Good afternoon, gents.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We'll come to you first, Tony, as you're dialed in. There's a little bit of doom and gloom around Leicester at the moment, just because of the way that they've come back from the return of football. But you look at it in the two Premier League games, they've not lost a game yet. They're just still looking for that first win.
Yeah, they are, Dan. And as I said to you, when we spoke last week, I said how difficult it is for the players to come back and hit the ground running. I think we've seen some of the teams. It appears that the break hasn't really affected them too much, but there's other teams, and certainly a lot of the teams at the bottom are really, really struggling to get a draw, let alone a win. So it's not easy. It's not been easy for the players. It's not been easy for the staff. It's not been easy to watch at times. I think it was frustrating, wasn't it? The home draw against Brighton, obviously following on with a cup defeat against Chelsea. So it's been a frustrating spell for Leicester. But as I always say, and we must do this, we must keep things in perspective. Leicester are still in a fantastic position, still got a wonderful opportunity to play in the Champions League next season. But you do feel, Dan, that this is a game that they've got to go into and not only get a draw, but they've got to really try and get a win tonight, because they're closing in the pack behind, and this is Leicester's game in hand on a couple of the teams, and it's really, really important to put in a good performance, but above all, to get that result. Walsh,
I'm sure you agree with everything that Tony said there.
Yeah, of course I do. It's still in our hands, isn't it? That's the good thing, but it's so vital tonight, and so is every game when you look at it. But let's firstly, Everton away. It's a difficult place to go. A little bit different with no crowd there at Everton, because TC how such an intimidating place it can be for visitors at Everton. I've played there several times, and it's quite a close environment, high pressured game, so it might work for Leicester. We've done well over the last couple of years away at Everton, which notoriously is a difficult place to go. So it's high pressure at the moment. With there's a lot of negativity, as you were saying, Dan, around the town and on social media, but it doesn't help the matters that are in hand, and Leicester have still got a fantastic opportunity in their hands, which you want to be at this stage of the season. So a win would be great. It'd just put pressure on, throw the pressure back on everybody else then. So we'll have to wait and see. But it's a difficult match. Everton in some decent form since the restart. So I'll be interested to see how we go on.
Matty, how do you think Brendan Rodgers and the Leicester City squad will be feeling arriving at Goodison Park? Obviously, they'll be in one of those porter cabins, won't they, which is where the dressing rooms are for the away side at Goodison. How do you think they're feeling ahead of the game?
Well, hopefully they're looking forward to a very important fixture with a little bit of positivity as well. Despite the two results and performances in the Premier League, there were signs of encouragement against Chelsea at the weekend. I think obviously things didn't turn out how they would have desired, but certainly in the first half, and Brendan Rodgers touched on it, his post-match interviews, that that was a little bit more like the Leicester of old, if you like. Yes, they need to be, have more of a cutting edge and have more creativity in that final area, but it was a little bit like they intend to go out and perform. They closed Chelsea down quite well, didn't they? There was more energy about the play. Certainly, again, as repeating myself, in the first 45, less so in the second. They'll be looking to build on that, won't they? And it's important they do so. Tony talks about the mentality, and it's huge, really, because I'm sure that the manager will be trying to remind the players, of that position they're in, and take it for what it is. Yes, okay, their run of form over a period of time now has been indifferent, to say the least, and they struggled to pick up wins regularly, and eventually the gap is getting closer and closer. But remind themselves that they are third in the league. They have a game in hand on a couple of teams that are not so far behind them now, who are applying pressure. But rather than panicking about what other teams are doing and your form necessarily and thinking, oh, what if this happens, and negativity creeps in. You've got to try and be strong and resilient and reassure yourself of, one, where you are, and also remind yourself of how you got there. And if Leicester perform to their capabilities, I still think they're capable of producing that Champions League qualification. Although, listen, the best way to alleviate any pressure is to get that, first and foremost, a result backed up by a performance that Tony mentioned.
And hopefully it comes tonight at Goodison Park. As ever, you guys at home watching this are essential to our show, so please do send in your tweets, your thoughts, your predictions ahead of kick-off. You can also send in your pictures of your setup for the game this evening. Just use either the hashtag LCFC or the hashtag ThenNowAgain. We can take a look at the teams for this evening. Walsh, you've obviously had a quick sneak peek at the Leicester team. Anything that stands out to you in there? Dennis Pratt obviously in midfield again this afternoon.
Yeah, I think looking at the balance of the team, I think it's strong. I'm a fan of all Brightons, but obviously, you look at it now, and 3 games in a week it would have been for him if he'd have played on Sunday, if he'd have started that match, Old Brighton. So I can probably understand where the manager's coming from at the minute and trying to rotate, because games are coming thick and fast. And but for me, the balance looks good. If we can get the support play, quicker and get, shift the ball wider and quick and get balls into the box for Vardy and create some chances, then, there's no doubt that Vardy could be in the 100 club tonight. So it'd be great if he can get over that hurdle as well. It seems to be a little bit of pressure on him at the minute. Getting over the line in anything is hard to do, and it will be for him, but also for the club as well. Getting over the line and staying in that top 4 is just as hard. But looking at this squad, looking at the team, I'm pretty happy with the strength in the squad. I think they've got enough creativity, enough pace to hit Everton on the counter. But again, we can't defend like we did at times on Sunday. Things have to be right. So I'm guessing, if Old Brighton plays that side of Chilwell, then he's going to work his socks off down that side. So it's going to be a good game, and I'm happy overall with the team.
And James Maddison obviously on the bench, Matty, for Leicester this afternoon.
Yeah, a little bit of a surprise omission.
Well, he had a knock at the weekend.
At the weekend, yeah, exactly. Yeah, had that knock, and there wasn't much spoken about it. Obviously, a big miss. Although, as I say, Leicester performed pretty well, particularly in that first 45 without Maddison, and I think that was a little bit of a testament of how well they did play, because no one was, was really concerned about Maddison not being in the fray. But I think, by and large, he's in the starting lineup, isn't he? More often than not. He is someone who's got that extra little bit of creativity. He's got an eye for a pass, and he also converts a few chances, doesn't he? And set pieces. So, a little bit of a miss. I think if he was fully fit, he probably starts. Although I thought Dennis Pratt did okay at the weekend, was slightly hard done by to come off as early as he did. Again, he's probably looking at the rotational side of things. I thought Tielemans did okay. Got himself into some good positions, broke up play occasionally, and played some nice passes, but it just lacks that little bit of explosiveness in the danger zone, doesn't he? But in terms of midfielder, I thought his performance was better than it has been over recent times, shall we say? But there's a bit of a balance there, isn't there? In terms of defence and attack, you've got options going forward. You've got a bit of solidity there, which I think Leicester will need in times tonight. But as long as the midfielders don't forget to venture forward and create little overloads or create extra bodies in the box, Tielemans and Pratt, there is a responsibility on them to go and support Jamie Vardy as well as the wider players.
Before we go and look at the Everton team, Tony, we referenced that the porter cabin that Leicester have got to get changed in. I'm sure there's probably however many people watching that have played Sunday League level at home, and they're used to that type of thing. But these are Premier League players, of course, and they're used to Premier League dressing rooms. Do you think that'll make much of a difference today for Leicester?
You like to think not, Dan. I mean, listen, they're professional footballers, and you do as you're told. And we've all played in pre-season games where we've been. It's some really, really restricted dressing rooms. I remember playing at the old Plough Lane when we used to play against Wimbledon. Now, that was intimidating because you had a dressing room that was so small. You had a skip in the middle of the room, and you got fashion Vinnie Jones shouting their heads off as you walk out the tunnel. Listen, I know we're playing in a different era and that, but they're highly paid professional footballers. You're told where to go, what to do. We all understand why it's like that, Dan. That away dressing room at Goodison, it's not particularly big at the best of times. So I think it's the right thing to do. The porta cabins, I do believe, are behind the Park Lane stand, so they'll come out in the far corner. I think Everton go down one tunnel and Leicester will go down the other tunnel, but it will give them freedom to prepare for the game and just be professional. Just try and treat it like you would a normal game and getting your routine, whatever that might be, getting stripped in a certain way, doing your warm up in a certain way, whatever that might be. Try not to let anything put you off. And then once that whistle goes, you're on the pitch and you're playing at Goodison Park. And I think Walshy touched on it. It's a fantastic place to play football.
We'll stick with you now, Tony, and we'll go from talking about the away dressing room to the home dressing room and the Everton lineup. Obviously, I guess for you as a former forward, you're a big fan of strike partnerships, aren't you? And Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin have certainly formed, particularly later on in this season, a really good partnership.
Well, I think it's been a big problem for Everton. Since Lukaku left the football club, he was people criticised him, but the amount of goals he scored for Everton, and he did it for Manchester United and moved on, and he was a top goal scorer. And I think Everton have always prided themselves on having a goal scorer, someone who like a Graham Sharp, or before that a Bob Latchford. I'm sure the other two boys can remember Dixie Dean, probably played against him many years ago. I'm joking, by the way, boys. But Everton have always had a long list of number 9s, and I think that's been a problem for them. They've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin now, who obviously played for England at a young level, the under-17s, etc. And he's been given his chance, and I like what I see with him. He's not the finished product yet, but he certainly has improved. I think he's a very good team player, but the problem is, and this was actually a criticism of our old teammate Emil Heskey, he wonderful team player, but then people criticised when he went to Liverpool, they criticised the amount of goals that he scored. And I think that's what's missing from Calvert-Lewin. The goals are coming. He's been a lot better this season. Richarlison, for me, he's not a centre forward, but those two are up there. It's a dynamic partnership, and our two boys have got to be on their toes. But I'm not worried. We've got Johnny Evans and Soyuncu, who have been amongst the best, if not the best, partnership this season as centre back. So I don't think they should be too worried. But these are two guys in Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison who will cause problems if you stand off them, if you let them turn, if you let them run at you, all the things that you shouldn't do as a defender. If we do that in a sloppy, then they will cause the problems. But get tight, do what the two boys used to do. Get tight, put them off their game, give them a little bit of a push in the back and let them know early on that it's not going to be an easy game. And if you nullify those front two, Dan, I do believe that the Leicester midfield can get amongst that midfield. It's an all right midfield. I think the Everton midfield, if you can win that midfield battle and stop the front two, then I think Leicester have got a great chance, especially hitting them on the break tonight.
And Walshy, from a defensive point of view, I guess similar to Leicester, really, you can pretty much guess what their back five is going to be every single game.
Yeah, of course. They've come back from the break. I think they've had 2 clean sheets. Is that correct? I think against Liverpool, mate, yeah, and against Norwich. So, they've shored things up. They obviously understand. They've got a good partnership now with Keane and Holgate. So, they've been strong at the back. So, but like Tony said, if we can get at them and show the pressure like we did against Chelsea, the intensity in our game. To close that ball down in that first 20 minutes was phenomenal. It really, Chelsea, Frank Lampard didn't know what to do. And if we can, start like that and keep that up, we pretty much did some in a lot of that game until the second half. So if we can do that, then we've definitely got a chance. We've got a lot of, like I said, there's enough in the team creativity. There's if Vardy can just get back to, making them runs them short little runs, and people can see him, and just then we've got a chance, because at the minute that supply line, it's just dried up a little bit, and he just, to me, looked a little bit disheartened, by not getting enough touches of the ball, and he's getting off chances that he's snatching at now, and that's not like him. So it'll be a good test tonight.
Well, as I said, you guys at home, you're central to this show. We can take a look at some of the pictures that you guys have sent into us of your setups at home for this game between Everton and Leicester. This is Lewis. He says he's backing the blue. He used the hashtag then, now, again. Matthew says he's ready for this, and he tagged LCFC, of course, on Twitter. He put hashtag then, now, again. That looks like a good setup, Matt, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I know that young man, actually, young Matthew, and it's good to see everyone getting involved, isn't it? And, you know, excited and anticipating what is, you know, a huge fixture for Leicester City now. It always was going to be, but as the games tick by, they become just that little bit more expectant, don't they? And a little bit more edge to the games, and yeah, it's good to see everyone getting on board.
And John on Twitter also says he's ready for the LCFC fan wall, so best of luck with that this evening. John Walshy, do you think he's always got his wall set up like that?
Sorry, I wasn't looking there. I was just looking at my notes there. What was that? Sorry.
Oh, it doesn't really matter too much. We're just looking at.
I'm guessing if someone was setting a wall.
It's on the screen now. We're just looking at John's setup at home, whether he always has those shirts like that.
Just say yes, 2-0 Vardy and Evans. I like it. Yeah, I like your style, Jonathan. I think that is a possibility.
Shirt? So it is there. There it is.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
No, listen. You know, I think there's so much on tonight's game. It's, you know, even for Everton as well, they are in 7th place, looking to for a European spot. Sorry, is 7th place, and I think they're 4 or 5 points off that. So they are looking to win. We are, like I said, the pressure for both teams is a little bit different. So, but yeah, 2-0. I'll go with that, Jonathan. I think if we do, we'd be happy with that clean sheet. Vardy gets his 100th, that'd be brilliant.
Well, Walshy there thought we were talking about Jordan Pickford. I guess we can do now if you want. So, Tony, obviously there's the Jamie Vardy, Jordan Pickford mini battle almost. There was the England connection there, certainly from a Jamie Vardy point of view. And Vardy obviously scored past him at Goodison Park last season. So, again, is that the kind of thing that Jamie Vardy will think about before a game?
I think there's no doubt that as a goal scorer, you certainly have favourite grounds, and to a degree, you have favourite goalkeepers that you want to play against, and you feel like you can score against them. So let's hope Jamie feels like that. You know, I feel for him a little bit at the moment because I don't think there's been an abundance of chances for him. I think he's had a few half chances. I don't think the service has been as good as it was earlier in the season. There's no James Maddison tonight. So, you know, the supply line, you know, maybe it'll work for him. You know, I think we've over the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen Jamie at his best when Leicester are playing counter-attacking football. And, you know, you would have thought that Everton will come on to Leicester tonight, and that might work well in their favour. But there's no doubt about it. You know, when you get to these landmarks as a goal scorer, I think it does play on your mind a little bit. You try not to let it play on your mind. You try not to think about it. But you know, it gets rammed down your throat. It's in the media. You finish the game and people are saying, well, when are you going to get your 100th goal then and everything? You don't know the answer to that. But what you've got to keep doing, and what Jamie will keep doing, and because he's very, very good at it, is keep getting in the positions to do it. You mustn't be afraid to miss. You can't sulk and worry about not scoring goals. You just got to keep getting in those positions, and eventually one will fall to him, or he might get a lucky deflection, come off his backside or something, and then you get your 100th goal. And I think once that goes in, not only will that be a relief for Jamie, I think that will be a relief for the players as well, because, you know, he is the main focal point for Leicester, and Leicester as a team, they need Jamie to get that 100th goal. So it'll be an intriguing battle. Jordan Pickford's a very good goalkeeper, Danny, in answer to your question, you know, but he is prone to make mistakes at times. So I'd like to see Jamie, you know, closing down when the ball's rolled back to him. He has a little dally on the ball every now and again, you know, put the goalkeeper under pressure. Try and put him off his game a little bit, but I think the sooner Jamie gets that 100th goal, the better for everyone. I
think also, Bates, you know, you've got to look at it. He's on 19 goals. He's on for the golden shoe, the golden boot at the minute as well, which is he's got to be looking at both of them, thinking, yeah, I want to get this sorted out. I want that 100th goal just to do that, and then I'm also want to finish top out of everybody. You know, that would be an award to get for him. So it's all to play for Jamie.
And obviously as well, Matt, you look at it, and as Tony was saying there, he spoke about how John Pickford may be prone to the odd mistake or dilly-dallying on the ball. Will Jamie Vardy be thinking that himself? Will he look at goalkeepers that he's going to play against and think some like to keep it a lot longer than others? I will close down some goalkeepers, I maybe won't do it if I know they get rid of it quickly, for example. Yeah,
I think Jamie Vardy's professional enough and detailed enough in his preparation to look at those factors, but particularly with his style of play. Him as an individual, he can capitalise on any little weaknesses, if you like, the goalkeepers have got in certain areas. Whether it be they like to go one way rather than another. Goalkeepers more often not do have a strong and a weak side, even though there may not be much difference. Techniques at penalties, free kicks, etc. I know Jamie Vardy's not involved in them and just surmising other players' preparation. But in terms of that, receiving the ball at the feet, it's such a huge part of goalkeeping these days. And some are better than others. Pickford is a wonderful striker of the ball. He does some unbelievable things, considering he's a goalkeeper, the way he plays the ball out. But he's a little bit erratic, Similar in a way to Kasper Schmeichel. Some people say to me about Schmeichel, he's not very good with the ball at his feet. I mean, he does some ridiculously good things with the ball, out of his hands in particular, and can strike the ball, but they're not as adept as the majority of defenders and midfielders, receiving balls in tight areas. Goalkeepers try and get a little bit carried away, overemphasise the playing out from the back, and you can catch them out occasionally. Jamie Vardy more than most. He's very clever at it. He's very sharp. He sets a little trap. He almost invites goalkeepers to have a touch and tries to close them down. So it's something he'll be looking at. It's just one aspect of his play, isn't it, that he can benefit from. But you've got to expect the unexpected a little bit, and in particular with Pickford, I think it's fair to say.
Well, we've had some fan predictions sent in from you guys at home. These particular ones have come all the way from a supporters group in Greece.
My score prediction for today is really simple. 1 goal for me, 1 goal for Theo, and then we have 2 goals. So Leicester 2, Everton 0.
Everton is a great team with very good players, and I think that they will score today, but we can win. So my prediction is 1 goal for Everton, 2 goals for Leicester.
Well, very positive, the supporters in Greece there. Walshy, do you agree with them? They've both backed Leicester for the win.
Listen, we've got to be positive, and it's something that the players will be told by Brendan Rodgers, the manager, that look, we go again, we brush ourselves down. Do you know what? Against Chelsea, I thought they'd give, they worked very, very hard. They worked the socks off. So they're capable, Leicester, of doing damage to teams, and it can just be out of the blue. Like we've just been talking with Jamie Vardy, he's a striker. He's a natural goal scorer. Similar, obviously, TC. They've got an art. They've got a skill that no one else has got, and that is scoring goals. And they can pop up at any time. They're dangerous, and you know that. And once they get on the goal trail, it can happen. It can go again. You can get 6 or 7 on the spin. That's how it works. I remember playing up front myself, and I scored 1 or 2, and then I felt like I was going to score in every game. I didn't have that fear factor at all, and he probably needs 1 just to spark him off again to the end of the season, and then you'll see the Jamie Vardy again. But no, I think the lads in Greece have got a good point. They've got to be positive. So yeah, I believe we can win this game. But again, it's working hard, doing things right, defending well, and hitting Everton on the counter.
Yeah, one of those predictions was 2-1, of course. Tony, it was 2-1 in the reverse fixture against Everton here at King Power Stadium. Incredibly dramatic, late winner. VAR obviously awarding the goal to Kelechi Iheanacho when he was originally flagged offside. Very late on, pretty much last kick of the game in that one. So do you think there can be any lessons learned from either side from that game?
Not really, Dan. I think it's only if you get a walloping that it's relevant. A 2-1 defeat is not particularly relevant. I think if you get stuffed 5 or 6-0 somewhere, you want to put it right later on in the season. And I think we had that a couple of times. So we certainly looked to put it right. But I think every game's different. I've already spoke about the difference in coming back and the fitness, etc. and that. So I don't think we can read too much into the game earlier in the season. As you you probably can't do too much with any other game that's going on this season. It's all been a bit strange, hasn't it, so far? But the one thing I would say, the boys were doing their predictions there and that, and I would like to think, and I hope that Leicester will get the 3 points. But if they only get a point tonight, and I say if only, I think they should also treat that as a really good point, because Goodison is a tough place to go to. They're not conceding goals. If it's only a point, I remember a couple of times, I'm sure the boys are backing me up on this, a couple of times, we didn't play particularly well, but we came in after the game and Martin O'Neill would go crazy about how it was the most magical, important point that we'd ever got in the history of football. And, sometimes you look to him and you think, well, but you realise, I think as you get older in your career, how hard it is to get points in the Premier League. Every single game, there'll be leagues all around Europe going on that, you play a mid-table team, and Everton, yes, they've got an outside chance of Europe, but they're more like a mid-table team at the moment. And mid-table teams roll over, and Leicester would go somewhere and win 3 or 4-0 if they're playing in, I don't know, France or somewhere like that. That doesn't happen in the Premier League. And the point I'm making is, yes, we want Leicester to win, and I hope they win. But if we only get a draw tonight, it's still another point that edges you towards that Champions League qualification.
I guess one positive, Matt, that Leicester can take is that there are no fans inside Goodison Park, and that probably is one of the big drawing points to Everton playing at home, and one of the reasons you'll know, of course, that makes it a difficult place to go.
Yeah, very much so. It swings and roundabouts, isn't it? Home and away fixtures these days, it's less of an influence, isn't it? Obviously the lack of supporters nullifies that. So it's difficult for the players to come to terms with, I think, a little bit, to an extent. But now they've had that breaking in period, if you like, I think they should be more accustomed to it, and they should be able to focus on, how much it means and how important it is, and don't let your mind wander into the fact that all of a sudden, because the supporters aren't there, it doesn't become quite as important, or even if you sort of drift into that mentality for a matter of minutes, you've got to be every bit as focused and more, to be honest, because to deal with the situation. We talked about the changing rooms and the porta cabins earlier. It's not really then, although you get yourself into the zone in preparation. It's when you get out on that pitch, and you've got to play as if it was a semi-final of the FA Cup, for instance, because I thought there was a marked difference at the weekend in how Leicester played. Is that because of the opposition, Chelsea, because of the gravity of the situation was realising, or is it because it's the quarter-final of the FA Cup, or all three of those factors together? But you've got to put your mind into gear as this is as big a game as it comes, to get the best out of yourself. Now, it'll be beneficial for Leicester, of course, that the supporters aren't there, in terms of being at Goodison Park. They are a huge means of support and motivation. But in my games, I really enjoyed playing there. To be honest, they could turn it. It's like the case with a lot of grounds, a lot of teams, isn't it? The manager always used to say, get a good start and you do well and take the lead and keep them fans quiet. And that in itself is intimidating for the home players, because all of a sudden there's pressure on them. So, but you have to deal with it, but then once it's turned round and the opposite occurs, then they're full throttle behind you. So it's quite an intimidating place to be. But I always found them, very very vocal there, of course, up at Goodison Park. But they're also, I think it's widely recognised they're quite knowledgeable as well. I mean, fair play to them. On at least one occasion, we got semi-clapped off coming off there. I think we had a couple of times we got a draw and a win maybe. But the fans, disappointed as they were, took the time to recognise that we were a decent side, giving our all. Little plucky Leicester all of a sudden, and they gave us some respect for that, and they actually clapped and cheered you off the pitch, and they gave you a round of appreciation, which was quite pleasing, to be honest, and a bit of a rarity, I know, but there won't be that for either team tonight, will there, unfortunately?
Well, despite that support and sometimes the intimidation at Goodison Park, Leicester have actually got quite a decent record there in recent seasons. They've scored some really big goals as well at Goodison Park in recent seasons. So we've asked you guys at home, which has been your favourite out of 4 recent goals at Goodison. There's the Jamie Vardy one from last season. Obviously, it was an iconic celebration that came after that one. There's an Esteban Cambiasso goal from the Great Escape season, Shinji Okazaki in the title-winning season, and James Maddison's from the Cup this season. Let's take a look then how those poll results are going at the moment then. So it's Jamie Vardy's goal last season that's well out in front at the moment, Matt. Maybe the celebration was a big part of that because there were some really good goals as well in those four. Yeah,
I think probably, I was going to say the most recent, but not necessarily so, is it, with James Maddison? There, sticks in the mind more. That was a hell of a goal, Maddison as well, wasn't it? But I can understand it. The percentage has been shared to a degree, reasonably evenly, but Vardy deservedly out in front.
It wasn't like the poll we had the other day, Walshy, where the goal you went for had 0 votes throughout it.
Is the Vardy one, was that Boxing Day or New Year's Day? Was it?
New Year's Day.
New Year's Day, yeah. I was up there actually in hospitality, and it was a late goal, wasn't it? If I remember rightly.
I think it was just in the second half.
It was second half at some point, yeah. And I had a lot of family up, and I'd left early, and I think I just missed it. And that must have been 25 minutes of the end of the game because I wanted to go and see all my family, and but it was.
Wanted to get in the bar early.
And to watch it, well, probably as well. So I missed the actual goal, but and obviously I heard it just as I got out my seat. He scored, so it was brilliant. But I had to watch it on television to see it. But no, it was. Listen, if you come away with 3 points at Everton, it's always a big result. It's a place. It's tough over the years, so we know that, and we've had our fair share of luck over there over the last few years. So long may that continue.
Well, let's go live to Goodison Park right now. Our LCFC radio summariser this evening is Jerry Taggart. He's given us his thoughts ahead of the game.
Hi everybody, Jerry Taggart here at Goodison Park, ahead of tonight's game against Everton for LCFC Radio. In my opinion, a massive game this evening for the club. Definitely a game that is a must not lose. I'm not saying it's a must win, but they must not lose this one, especially with Manchester United winning last night, Chelsea playing tonight. So the next couple of games are very, very big indeed. So in my opinion tonight, it's going to be a hard-fought game. Carlo Ancelotti, a manager that will inspire his team to get at Leicester. Leicester will probably have to deal with some pressure early on in the game and hopefully come out on top. So I'm going to go for a prediction of a 1-1 draw.
Well, you can listen to Jerry Taggart and John Dunn, our LCFC radio team, this evening. They'll be on just before kick-off on LCFC radio. Tony, Jerry there parted a little bit of a warning shot, didn't he, to the Leicester squad. He says, OK, it's not necessarily must win, but it is a must not lose game.
Yeah, I think he was just sort of, echoing really what I'd said about how important it could be to get that draw. Yeah, I mean, I think nowadays everyone goes on about 6-pointers and it's a must-win game and all these sort of trendy sayings that have come out in football, I think, over the last sort of 10 years or so. But, Taggsy's right. It just from, keeping that sort of unbeaten league form going, you don't want to be losing this game and you don't want to be chasing. I mean, sort of looking at the fixtures, I think the fixtures are pretty good, Dan. They're, with the exception of Bournemouth, who are in relegation trouble, you look at the next 6 fixtures for Leicester. They're good games. They're against teams that aren't necessarily pushing for the Champions League and Europe and aren't necessarily involved in the relegation battles. Apart from the last game, of course, we know how big that might be against Manchester United. But it is the point Tags is making is don't lose. If you don't play well, we've all been in teams where you're not playing well. You could argue even the Brighton game last week that we covered. They didn't play well, Leicester, but they didn't lose the game, and it ended up. It could be a vital point, and I think that's the point that Tags is making. You don't have to win this game. I said that you don't have to win this game. It could end up a really, really good point, but don't lose the game. Because once you lose that game, the heads go down, everyone's doubting things, the chasing pack are closing in and it'll be all doom and gloom and everything. It's not doom and gloom. If you get a point, it's still a good point.
Yeah, Tony referenced there, Matty, the Brighton game, didn't he? I guess it was similar with the Watford game as well, although, yes, they did score very late and take the lead very late. They didn't play as well as we know that they can do, but they made sure that they didn't lose the game. Same with Brighton, of course. Yeah,
well, that's how it transpired. It could quite easily have gone very differently, both ways, to be honest. Leicester was slightly fortuitous against Brighton, but they could have nicked it on another day. Good save by Kasper Schmeichel, obviously in the first half. Kept them on a level pegging, but it's that's the way football goes. Very rarely goes exactly to plan, as we've seen this campaign as well as others. But Jerry says there about it's a must not lose. In some senses, yes, but even if they were to come away from Goodison Park with nothing, they're still capable of getting that much wanted Champions League spot. It's not the end of the world. Listen, don't get me wrong. People will say it's a bit of a slippery slope and results, and as Tony says, the doom and gloom merchants will come out, and of course it will be a blow. But even that is not the end of the world. There's still games to play, points to be picked up, and you have to come up against adversity, don't you, and deal with it. But sooner or later, Leicester's fortunes need to take a turn for the better. For sure.
Sorry, Bates. You look at the league table as it stands, and you look at our goal difference. We discussed it Sunday, didn't we? That could be vital in the last game of the season. It could come down to that. Now, if you get a point tonight, the teams, Man United and Wolves, are the only two that are in this now, aren't they? Let's be honest. I think so. Anyway, they'll need if we get 1 point tonight, they need 2 wins. Yeah, so it's gonna be difficult to get those, and it just puts that little bit of breathing space. But that goal difference, it could be a massive thing for us.
Well, you say 2 wins. You could say 2 wins and then another win or a draw because of the goal difference.
Because of the goal difference. So we are in a good position, and like you say, a point isn't the end of the world tonight. It puts a lot of pressure back on Man United and Wolves, who are on fire at the minute. You just don't see them getting beat, but they will do. They'll slip up. They'll get a draw somewhere, and that sets them back. So we are in the driving seat, but we've got to do it. We've got to play well.
Well, Mark, I think, sums it up quite nicely on Twitter. We just saw it at the bottom there. He said he'd happily take the worst performance in the last 5 years and an own goal going for us to win 1-0. I think he echoes what a lot of Foxes fans might be thinking. Let's get the thoughts then of the Leicester City manager, Brendan Rodgers, ahead of the game this evening.
Yeah, no, but we look forward to it. I think that one thing that I spoke to the players before entering into this final run-in and this final push of ours is that if we somehow lose a game, then we certainly can't be derailed by it, because the games are coming very thick and fast. We'll be disappointed, but very quickly you got to get over it. And now we have a great chance now playing against Everton to go and continue with our level of performance. And we're just waiting for that moment to happen in the game where we get that goal, that early goal that can really give this young team the confidence. So it's a game that they're a good side. We've seen that over the course of the season. We had, as I said, a very good result earlier on. We'd gone up there in the cup and had a good performance. So we aim to go into this game with the same mentality and look to gain 3 points.
As you say, quite a few young players in there. How confident are you that they can deal with the pressure of the likes of Wolves and Chelsea breathing down your neck?
Well, I think we're in the position because of ourselves, because of no one else, and I think that's been my message. We just really have to focus on our own performance, forget about everyone else. We're in the position that we're in because of how well we've done, and with 7 games to go, we're in a absolutely brilliant position. So one game at a time, just stay in the present and stay focused, and let's do everything we can to get the result.
Leicester City manager Brendan Rodgers there speaking ahead of the game this evening. Tony, he said in his first little bit of his answer there about it's a young squad and what they maybe need is an early goal just to settle some of the nerves that may naturally be in the group, because as he said there, they are a young squad and on the whole fairly inexperienced. Yes, there are some very experienced players in there, but on the whole they are quite a young group. So maybe they just need an early goal just to settle down their nerves somewhat.
Yeah, of course they do, but I also think that's where the senior players come into play. The likes of Kasper and Jamie Vardy, Johnny Evans, very, very senior, experienced players that have to settle those young boys down. And sometimes you go into these big games and you're all pumped up for it, and you've got your plan, your game plan. I'm sure Brendan will sit them down either in the changing room, or he would have done it this morning or last night, told them what the game plan is, how they're going to go about getting 3 points at Goodison, what they're going to do, how they're going to go about it. But sometimes, Dan, you go a goal down after 5 minutes or 10 minutes sometimes, and that's where it can throw the youngsters a little bit off course with things, and that's where the senior players come into it. And I'm sure Brendan would have made that point to them. Look, don't panic. If you go a goal down, you don't need to panic. We've got enough good players in this team. There's enough quality in this Leicester team. Even if you go a goal down, to just gradually ease your way back into the game. And I think sometimes teams panic. They go a goal down, they go gung-ho to try and get a goal back, and then you get hit on the counter-attack. I've already mentioned the two front players for Everton who are good players. And if Leicester do that and then they get a second goal, then you're in even bigger trouble. So, the one thing you can't buy in football is experience. You get your experience through playing through these games, through learning through these games, through learning through your mistakes. And that's what the young boys have done. They've done fantastically well this season. Some of the young boys have been absolutely brilliant, and they perform way above their years and their experience, But there will be wobbles at times in the season. Yeah, it's a slight wobble now. There was a slight wobble around about January, February time as well. But that does happen when you've got a team that contains quite a lot of youngsters. But those senior boys will help them through. They've got a very, very good manager. But, my advice to them will be is if you suffer a setback in the first 10 or 15 minutes, or if it goes like it did in the Brighton game, which we watched last week, where you don't have much of the ball and Brighton create a few chances, don't panic, because it will gradually turn around. You've got to hang on in the game, and then, let your football do the talking. But the young boys have been brilliant this year.
Well, do make sure you get your thoughts and views ahead of the game into us here on City on the Sofa. You can do so using hashtag LCFC and hashtag then now again. One person that's done that and send us a little message is Fee Howe on Twitter. It's a really nice message. She says, with the local lockdown, I'm so glad to see the guys in the studio and obviously TC at home. Thank you, Leicester, for continuing to bring us the matchday experience in these difficult times. So thank you very much to Fee for that, who I know is a regular viewer and listener to our shows, isn't she, Matt?
She is indeed, yes. She was tuning in at the weekend as well, wasn't she, by all accounts?
Fee 5 for fun.
So thank you very much to that, Fee. Do keep bringing in your views and your comments. We'll get some of the best of them on screen for us now. What Tony said there, I'll come to you now, Walshy. You're very proud of yourself after that one, aren't you?
No, I'm not. No. I just like our little.
That
I miss all the funny punts and stuff. These competitions that I hate.
Well, Tony said there about, he was talking about the youth in the group, and the main message he was saying really was make sure you don't panic. Whatever happens in the game, don't panic. Even if you lose a goal early on and you're on a mini blip, if you like, just make sure that if you panic, it's the worst thing you can do on a football pitch.
Yeah, I guess so. But we've got enough. These younger lads have got enough experience and experience around them as well. So I don't think there's any excuses anymore now. I think it's a matter of being strong as a person in situations like this. I've been there before, so have the lads as well, where it can get pretty tense. Nerves can affect certain players, but you've got to be headstrong, and you've got to take the bull by the horns as such, in a way of making sure that you do things right in your preparation, in the way that you start the game. I think that's really vital. Just getting a good touch of the ball, just get used to it, do things quickly, retain possession, and things will work out for you. But these young lads, they have done phenomenally well. Like Tony said, I think they've done way past the years in how well they've played from the start of the season. So I don't think there's a fear factor in them players. I think that when you're that young, you don't really have the fear that you do when you're a little bit older, when important finals that we've played in at Wembley and semi-finals in playoff finals are so nerve-wracking games, and I couldn't sleep before any game, and yet you once you get out there, it's different. Obviously, at the moment with the way that the crowds, there's no crowds, it's a very difficult situation. Now, we are in the business end of the season and these lads know that, and it is high pressure and they've got to deal with it, and they've dealt with it pretty well so far. Listen, we've been playing quite well and been narrowly defeated to a great Chelsea team really on Sunday, and it just shows you that we're competing against the best.
We just saw some nice warm-up pictures there from Goodison Park. Obviously, the camera panned to Jamie Vardy, as it naturally does, particularly with him being on his 99th Premier League goal. But it also, Matt, went to Wilfred Ndidi, and we're talking about these young players. You forget quite how young he is. He's only 23, but he is a mature head and such an important head, isn't he, for Leicester City and this team at the moment? Yeah,
he's a huge influence, isn't he? I think for Leicester, week in, week out, and I think he was missed when he had that period out with the injury, although very good players were coming in to take his place, but it's just that influence and the way that he just bosses that midfield area, doesn't he? He's got it off to a T. That CDM role, as they call it these days, he's as good as any in the league. I think the only other one, perhaps Fabinho, that comes to mind at Liverpool, particularly when you see him in the flesh as well. Fabinho, hugely impressive, but Wilfred's not far off, and full testament to him and a lot of credit, because as you say, 23, he plays with such maturity. His understanding of the positional sense and his aggressiveness and physicality as well. When to apply it and when not, when to hold back and not commit the foul, etc. He's a huge player for Leicester City, and I think, harping back to what Tony said earlier in the programme, that midfield area, vital as always in any game, but particularly tonight, I think it's an area that Leicester need to focus on, because if you look at Everton, they're pretty solid throughout. They've got the double threat up top, Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison, but in midfield, while there's a lot of technical ability, there's not too much mobility in the centre area. With Sigurdsson and Gomez there, fine players in their own right. But Leicester will have the upper hand in terms of numbers, you would imagine. Playing sort of three central midfielders, and the wider players, Albright Barnes, will come back and help on occasion. But they perhaps can create little overloads there, and go back to my point where Tielemans and Pratt can't just be solid midfield performers. They've got to be a bit more expansive than that and try and stretch the Everton midfield. Well, that key midfield battle is something that Dave Downey from the Blue Room fan podcast for Everton has been speaking about, and he also says that Carlo Ancelotti has brought a real feel-good factor back to Goodison Park.
There's been a rapid increase in optimism around Goodison, I think. Some real optimism he brought with him. Obviously a world-class manager, stellar reputation, exactly the type of appointment I think many Evertonians have wanted to see for quite some time, really, most in their lifetimes, if they're around the age of 30 like I am. I feel as if he's brought a real sort of mentality of calm. There seems to be a serenity around the training ground that seems to bring the best out of the players as well. And whilst the squad, it needs massive work, make no mistake, there's a hell of a lot of things to do for him. He's managed to find a pragmatic way of getting this team to play, getting this team to pick up results while still not having the talent available to him. So that really excites us going forward, I think, because you look ahead to transfer windows and things like that. It can only get better from our point of view in terms of squad quality. So for him to do this now with not so much at his disposal, it really bodes well for the future that he will have money to spend and he's able to really bolster that squad. Richarlison's been outstanding. His work rate is immense. I think his stats read that he's the best attacker in terms of getting back and winning tackles for his side, which says it all. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin's really found his groove now. He's a genuine Premier League striker. He's a genuine goal scorer. So I think the Foxes will have the handful with those two. Where I'm more concerned is the midfield battle, because I think Leicester have got an immense midfield. I know the results haven't been great since the return from lockdown, but that midfield does frighten me when you look at how frail ours is.
Well, Tony there, Dave Downey from the Everton fan podcast, the Blue Room podcast, underlined that midfield battle really that Matt was just talking about. He said, yes, Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison up front will cause a lot of problems, but it is in that midfield that Leicester can win the game this evening.
Yeah, and I see young Anthony Gordon's playing on the left as well. You know, he done okay. I think I saw him play against Liverpool, and it was a tough game for him to play in. Iwobi, for me, hasn't been value for money. On his day, he can be a real handful. So I think that will be an interesting battle, certainly up against Ben Chilwell. But, you know, those two, Gomez and Sigurdsson, good footballers, Dan. Really, really good footballers. If you stand off them, you know, particularly Gomez, he'll spray the ball around the pitch, you know, a bit like what Neves does for Wolves. He'll spray it here, there and everywhere. Sigurdsson will look to push forward. He can score goals from midfield. But, you know, you look at that Leicester midfield, you know, certainly Dennis Pratt and Tielemans is a big responsibility on those two guys. And for Wilfred as well, indeed, you know, to get involved and, you know, make the game work from where he is. You know, I like Ndidi. Every time I've seen him play, he you know, he just picks up the pieces. If it goes wrong in midfield, he's always there to shield the defence. So it's a huge battle in that midfield. You know, Dave, the Everton fan, that, you know, touched on it there. It is an area of concern. I'm sure it's something that, you know, Carlo Ancelotti will look to sort of build upon next season. But, you know, for this particular game tonight, I think that Leicester midfield will be rubbing their hands and thinking we can get at these four that are in midfield. There's no doubt about that.
Matt, as well, with 10 minutes to go until kick-off, we can get a reminder of Leicester's team this afternoon. It's the same back five that has played in the last few games as Wilfred Ndidi, Youri Tielemans and Dennis Pratt in midfield, with Mark Albrighton, Jamie Vardy and Harvey Barnes up as the front three, Matt. And again, just looking at the way that Leicester line up, Pratt and Tielemans, as Tony was saying there, it isn't just going forward that there's a big role for them. It's defensively as well, and it's stopping the likes of Sigurdsson and Gomez playing.
Yeah, I think it's finding that balance, isn't it? Obviously, Maddison, you know, is not deemed fit to start. You're assuming, but you know, you look at it. Pratt, he's an all-round midfielder, isn't he? And I think since he come to the club, initially you felt as if he was more defensive-minded than offensive, but I think he's shown traits in different attributes, you know, in different aspects, really. He can sit and hold in midfield, he can spray the ball around a bit, he can make runs forward. He's got an eye for an attempt at goal, hasn't been able to convert too many, but, you know, he's a good all-round midfielder and gives you a lot of various options, doesn't he? And similarly with Tielemans, you know, we've seen him at the base of a three on occasion. It hasn't worked particularly well. I don't think that's the strongest part of his game, but you know, he has that intelligence to be able to adapt and work in defensive situations, which well, by and large we're expecting Leicester to have to do in periods tonight. But like I say, the key for me is not just playing on the counter, Leicester, which we know they're very adept at, but also in periods of the game controlling it and, you know, getting hold of the ball. Having good mobility and flexibility in their movement, and carving open, you know, Everton, who are relatively rigid but very well organised.
Walshy, obviously, Brendan Rodgers in the dressing room, in the porter cabin, will be giving his final instructions to his players. Do you think, in a way, that looking back at the games Leicester have played, he'll probably look back at the loss rather than the two draws and say, that's how actually I want you to play, particularly how they played in that first half against Chelsea in the FA Cup here at King Power Stadium?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it that his instructions will be to start the game how you did on Sunday, because it was tremendous. We were picking up all the second balls, we were tight, we were squeezing, and we were pressing in the right areas. Put Chelsea under so many, made them make so many errors that it was looking great, and they played really well the whole of that first half. They put so much energy into that. Now that's the mindset that you want them to go out and play, because there's no doubt when they play like that they become a team. And if you'd have looked at, you know, saying who's higher up in the table, you would have said Leicester City in that first half, you know. But you know, Chelsea are a good side, and they came back in it. But the words of Brendan Rodgers surely will be no mistakes. Don't take any risks and chances. You know, let's play when we've got it. Let's move the ball quickly, and let's try and create some chances and opportunities.
Richarlison and the Everton players are in the tunnel at Goodison Park. We're about 5 minutes away now from kick-off. Just a reminder, if you want to listen to the game, you certainly can on LCFC Radio. Also a reminder, we will be leaving social media now here for City on the Sofa, so do head over to lcfc.com/TV. You can watch us on there. We'll take you all the way through the game. We'll have half-time analysis as well as the best of the post-match analysis as well.